Me watching the Zaggy video.
If you buckle a child into a car seat while they're still wearing a thick, puffy jacket, the straps sit on top of all of that padding, and it looks tight and secure, but in a crash, that jacket flattens instantly, turning that hidden padding into extra space the harness can't control. And with all that sudden slack, they can jolt forward far enough for the straps to
Didn't say I could
letting the
say
fly forward with nothing to stop it.
He didn't say I could
You
say
still
it.
buckle the child in first, then put the coat on backwards over the straps, allowing the harness
He
to
didn't
stay
say
tight
I
against the
could
body
say
and
it.
keep the child safely in place during a crash. The tool suctions onto the fake eye,
Oh, hell.
completely plucking it out.
Oh,
Then it's
oh,
wiped clean and polished and pressed back into the socket. You see, years earlier, an infection had destroyed his eye, and doctors couldn't save it. So he worked with an expert to set a real 2-carat diamond in the middle of his new prosthetic eye. And now it catches the light with every blink. The tool's
Okay.
child fell in an accident, damaging the left side of his brain. And this left him unable to read, write, and even tie his shoes. But his mother soon realized he could sculpt a perfect copy of an animal with just clay and his hands, even after seeing it on screen for only a few seconds. You see, the injury forced the other half of his brain to work extra hard, which boosted his memory and art skills to a superhuman level. Throughout his life, he made hundreds of lifelike animal statues, and he's now considered a genius sculptor. He pulled the grate off the vent, and his baby brother crawled straight in. He dropped 8 feet down the hole before getting stuck at the bottom. Now, their mom was in the other room and had no idea
What the?
until the toddler came in yelling, "Baby in." He showed her the open vent, and she realized her baby was inside. Rescuers tried to reach him, but he was in too deep, so an officer crawled under the house, pushing the baby up the shaft and back into his mother's arms. And after that, she screwed the grate shut. He pulled the grate off the vent. She thought it was a runny nose, but the clear liquid was not mucus. You see, 2 years earlier, she got into a car crash, hitting her head on the dashboard. This broke the thin bone between her brain and her sinuses, and the fluid filling her skull started to leak out, which she thought was just a runny nose. Soon, she was losing 2 cups of fluid a day, until doctors finally found the hole. They took fat from her belly and plugged it, finally allowing her to live normally. She thought if a dog sucked up water like a human, the water would just fall right out of its mouth. And this is because dogs can't close their cheeks all the way. Instead, its tongue shoots down and bends backwards before being pulled back up.
Look. Dogs are built differently. My dog's dreamed like a perfect gentleman. He built different. Your dog started to treat like a human. Pack up and leave the house. Painted Chinese PV. Scooby-Doo have been a real since she dropped.
And the force of the impact and the curve of the tongue makes a splash, pulling the water into a rising column. The dog then bites down, catching the water in its mouth and swallowing it, meaning your dog is basically eating its water, not drinking it. If a dog crashed his car and an ambulance rushed him to the hospital, when doctors checked his phone for an emergency contact, they called 17 people thinking they were his family. Minutes later, a woman arrived. Then another came in behind her, and another, and another. Soon, the waiting room was full. 17 women, all insisting on his girlfriend. They soon realized...
Wait. That escalated quick. They escalate quickly. The car didn't finish him. The doctor did. I am his girlfriend. Dog. We have another one. Title degree. Subscribe to Bella. How he managed to spending time with 70 girlfriends. That seemed like a logical nightmare.
with the same name. Some were giving him money, and one was already planning their wedding, all believing they were his only partner. Everything he had been hiding for years unraveled in a single afternoon, all because of one car crash. He crashed his car. If you stack a Pringle on top of another, all facing the same direction, each chip pushes downwards, holding the ones below in place. Now, because the chips are curved,
Wait.
it will cause the stack to curve upwards, and their weight presses on the ones in front, which creates enough friction to keep the chips from slipping. And
Zach is feeling good today. Only Zach used the whole can of the Pringles of this. Zach was feeling gorgeous today, no traumatize. Zach, make a shot doesn't traumatize me. Pringles sell this after. Wait, it's wrong way. Pringles sell after this. Zach didn't experience any trauma today. Instead, he felt giving.
as you add more Pringles, the sides will continue to curve. Then just rest the last few chips on top, perfectly closing the circle. He pressed the controls super fast and beat the same game for the 100th time. He really wanted the new game, but it was just way too expensive. He got a text from his girlfriend, Mary. Let's not do gifts this year and just save our money instead. Sound good? He glanced at her camera on the shelf. It had slipped from her hands weeks ago, causing a crack in the lens. And every photo she took since had a line running right through the middle. He really wanted to get her a new lens for Christmas, which means he needed extra cash. First, he walked dogs around the city. Then, he went around the neighborhood, shoveling snow. He delivered food throughout the night, even skipping meals just to save every dollar. But by Christmas Eve, he still didn't have enough. He looked down at his game console, his favorite thing, and knew what he had to do. He biked through the snow and sold it for just enough to buy Mary the new lens. On Christmas morning, he handed her a small box wrapped in newspaper. She teared up as she lifted it out of the box. Then she smiled and handed him a box of her own. Inside was the new game, the one that he had wanted all year. He was confused. How could she afford this? And that's when he noticed the empty space on the shelf where her camera used to sit. She had sold it, just like he sold his game console. And even though they couldn't use their gifts, they both ended up with something better. He pressed the doctors carefully removed his kidney and placed it into a machine to keep it alive. In a nearby room, his sister waited on the operating table. Her kidneys were failing, and this transplant would save her life. Now, the kidney sat on the counter, cooling in the machine, until a nurse came back from her lunch break. She saw the machine and assumed the transplant was already in his sister's room. So she took out the piece
What the hell?
and dumped it straight into a medical
What
waste.
the hell?
By the time anyone realized what happened, the kidney had been ruined. For months, his
What
sister
the
was
hell?
back on dialysis as she waited for another one until she finally received one. It wasn't as healthy as the one her brother had tried to give her, meaning she had to live with a weaker kidney for
Imagine getting your kidney removed just for them to toss in the trash. This type of nurse should never get a chance by any hospital for a non-intelligent.
Why would anyone want to Why would anyone throw a kidney in the dustbin?
No, the nurse thought there's nothing. It was genuinely painful to watch the whole mind body just squeeze. The nurse should be absolutely get fired.
Rest of her life. Doctors rest the bottom stick between the nook of your
See, I told you
thumb
this how you
and
do
your
it.
finger, gripping it lightly to keep
Okay,
it
never
still.
mind, I don't care.
Next, hold the her necklace
Stop.
Rest the bottom stick between the nook of your thumb. Her necklace still caught on the fingers of her neck massager, and the rotating arm pulled it tight. But instead of turning off, it kept going, cutting off the blood flow in her neck. The woman quickly fell unconscious, but the massager didn't stop, eventually strangling her to death. And by the time her husband found her, it was too late. Now the FDA told other customers to throw their massagers away, but since there was no official recall, some people might still have these in their homes. Her necklace
Oh, hell
got
no.
caught on the fingers of her neck massager, and the
Lesson
rotating
learned,
arm
guys.
pulled
Don't wear
it
a
tight.
necklace to
Instead of
sleep.
turning off,
No,
it
that's
kept going,
write that
cutting off the blood flow
where
in
you
her
write that
major
down.
artery. The woman quickly
You should
fell
put.
unconscious,
You should
but the
remove the
massager
necklace
didn't
and
stop,
wear it as sleep.
eventually
Wow.
strangling her to death. And by the time her
Where
husband
does
found
he
her, it
even
was too
find
late.
this?
Now
The
the
massager was a
FDA
fan
told
I
other
know
customers
this
to
destination
throw their
close the
massagers
final
away.
destination.
There was no official rule. She stumbled as she got out of bed, and her
Oh.
220-pound body
No.
fell on top of her husband, who was lying on the floor
What
beside
the
her.
hell?
She slid into the gap between the bed and the wall, wedging him underneath her weight. He tried to push himself free, but the pressure on his chest made it impossible to breathe. His wife screamed while trying to lift herself up, but she couldn't move. Neighbors rushed in and pulled her off, but her husband had already suffocated. She stumbled as she got out of bed,
Wait, stop.
and her 220-pound body
Stop.
Obesity is the cure. Stay healthy, folks.
inside the mattress.
In fact, it's a real story. Wait, May, this is real story. In fact, this is a real story. It's unbelievable. R.I.P.